A hidden hand guides the unfolding of human history. This is the core mystery of the Rosicrucian tradition, an esoteric spiritual movement that speaks of an invisible ruler. By the end of this exploration, you will understand the profound layers of this concept and how it might be influencing your own life right now. We will uncover who or what this unseen governor truly is, from a divine force to the highest part of yourself. We will ask why a secret brotherhood claimed to hold this ancient wisdom for centuries. What does it truly mean to be ruled by something you cannot see? Into this world of upheaval, 3 mysterious documents appeared as if from nowhere. They were the Fama Fraternitatis, the Confessio Fraternitatis, and the Chimical Wedding of Christian Rosencreutz. Published in the early 1600s, these texts were not signed by any known author. They simply materialized in the city of Kassel, Germany, and spread through Europe like a spiritual wildfire. Their message was a profound shock to the established order. They announced the existence of a secret brotherhood, the Rosicrucians, who claimed to possess ancient, transformative wisdom. This was not just knowledge for the sake of philosophy. It was a practical key to understanding nature, God, and the human soul. The manifestos told a captivating story of their founder, a figure named Christian Rosencreutz. He was said to have traveled to the East, learned secret arts from Arabian sages, and returned to Europe to establish this hidden fraternity. The Fama, the first of the documents, described the miraculous discovery of his vault, a 7-sided chamber filled with wondrous books and artifacts, found perfectly preserved more than a century after his death. This was not presented as a mere legend, but as a literal truth, an invitation for the worthy to seek them out. Why did these texts cause such a sensation? Because they spoke directly to the deepest yearnings of the age. Here was a promise of a new reformation, one that would transcend the bitter religious wars tearing the continent apart. It offered a path that united scientific curiosity with spiritual devotion. For the intellectuals and seekers of the time, this was a revolutionary idea. You could pursue knowledge of the stars and the human body without abandoning your faith. You could seek a direct personal connection with the divine, guided by an invisible hand that was not a distant tyrant, but a benevolent teacher. The manifestos did not provide an address for this brotherhood. They were a test, a cipher left for the truly prepared to decipher. This deliberate secrecy only amplified their power, creating a mystery that has captivated seekers for centuries. The question shifted from whether the brotherhood was real to what its true purpose might be. The manifestos presented a founder shrouded in equal parts mystery and miracle. His name was Christian Rosencreutz, and his story reads like an allegory for the entire spiritual quest. According to the texts, he was born in 1378 into a noble German family destined for a monastic life. But he rejected this path as a young man, setting out instead on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. This journey, however, took a profound detour. Instead of reaching Jerusalem, he was diverted to Damascus, and from there he ventured deeper into the unknown lands of the Middle East. He sought out the masters of Arabia, Egypt, and a mythical place called Damkar, where he was initiated into the deepest secrets of nature, medicine, mathematics, and the sacred arts. He did not just collect information, he underwent a complete transformation, absorbing wisdom that had been lost to the Western world for centuries. After years of study, he returned to Europe with a singular mission: to heal a continent he saw as spiritually and intellectually sick. He attempted to share his discoveries with the learned men of his time, but they rejected him, clinging to their old, rigid ways. So, with just 3 loyal companions, he founded his own secret society, the Order of the Rose Cross. They created a hidden headquarters called the House of the Holy Spirit, a place of study, healing, and profound spiritual work. The legend culminates with his death at the age of 106. His followers, honoring his wish for secrecy, entombed him in a hidden 7-sided vault, a perfect architectural representation of cosmic order. And as the first manifesto, the Fama, describes, this vault was rediscovered by a later generation of brothers 120 years after his death, found perfectly intact, with his body uncorrupted, surrounded by books of ultimate knowledge. This is the powerful myth, but was Christian Rosicrucian a real man? Scholars have debated this for centuries. Some point to potential historical figures, suggesting the name is a complex cipher or a pseudonym for another known adept. Others argue compellingly that he was never meant to be taken literally. In this view, Christian Rosicrucian is a profound symbol. His name itself translates to Christian Rose Cross, a name representing the union of Christian faith with a more ancient natural wisdom, the rose symbolizing the blossoming soul and the cross representing the manifested world. His journey to the east symbolizes every seeker's inner journey to find the light of wisdom within. His rejection by the establishment reflects the struggle of new, transformative ideas against old, rigid systems. And his hidden, rediscovered tomb represents the eternal truth that divine knowledge is never lost, only waiting, perfectly preserved, for the moment we are ready to find it within ourselves. So the real question is not whether he walked the earth, but what he represents. Is he a historical founder, or is he the very archetype of the enlightened human, a map for our own spiritual awakening? This idea of a hidden founder leads us directly to the Rosicrucians' most profound and lasting concept, the invisible college. It is a term that evokes images of shadowy figures meeting in secret chambers, but its true meaning is far more subtle and powerful. The Invisible College is not a physical organization with a membership list and a headquarters. It is a spiritual fraternity, a network of enlightened minds and souls who exist beyond the constraints of time and space. These are individuals who have, through their own inner work and awakening, aligned themselves with a higher purpose. They are the adepts, the masters, the guides who work from the unseen dimensions of reality. Their primary mission is not to control or command, but to gently influence the spiritual and intellectual evolution of humanity. Think of them not as puppet masters pulling strings, but as master gardeners tending to a vast, global garden. They plant seeds of inspiration in the minds of scientists, artists, and philosophers. They nurture breakthroughs in consciousness and nudge human thought toward greater light and understanding. Their work is always for the betterment of the whole, never for personal power or recognition. This is why they remain invisible. Their influence is meant to be felt, not their presence seen. If they were known, their work would be met with the same resistance Christian Rosicrucian faced, their motives questioned and their guidance distorted by the very systems they seek to uplift. They operate through synchronicity, through sudden insights, through dreams, and through that quiet, persistent voice of intuition that whispers in moments of deep reflection. You may have experienced their influence yourself. Have you ever had a brilliant idea appear out of nowhere, a solution to a problem that had been troubling you for weeks? Or felt an inexplicable pull toward a certain book or a piece of knowledge that perfectly answered a question you were holding in your heart? These are not mere coincidences. In the Rosicrucian view, these are the gentle touches of the invisible college, guiding you toward your own next step in awakening. They do not force your will, but they illuminate the path for those who are ready to see. This transforms the entire quest from a search for an external secret society into an inner preparation to join a spiritual current. The goal is not to find the brothers, but to become the kind of person the brothers would recognize as one of their own. This unseen government of enlightened minds points toward an even greater mystery, the source of their authority. Who or what truly sits at the apex of this spiritual hierarchy? We arrive now at the deepest layer of the Rosicrucian secret, the invisible ruler understood not as a person, but as a fundamental principle. This is the concept of a single, ultimate source from which all of existence flows. It is a reality so vast and formless that the human mind cannot truly grasp it. We can only approach it through metaphor and the language of the ancient mystical traditions the Rosicrucians drew upon. In the philosophy of Neoplatonism, this source is called the One. It is not a God that thinks or feels as we do. It is beyond all attributes, beyond even being and non-being. It is the pure, undifferentiated fountainhead of all that is, from which reality emanates like light radiating from a central sun that is itself too brilliant to look upon. Similarly, in the Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition, this ultimate is called Ein Sof, a term which literally means without end. Ein Sof is the infinite, the boundless, the absolute essence that exists before any form or creation. It does not govern through commandments or intervention, but through the inherent laws of its own emanation. The entire cosmos is an unfolding of this one infinite reality, a process of moving from unity into diversity. So, the invisible ruler is this cosmic source. Its governance is not the rule of a monarch, but the unwavering operation of divine, natural law. Think of it as the fundamental operating system of the universe, the immutable code that dictates how spirit becomes matter, how consciousness unfolds, and how love manifests as order. Everything from the spin of a galaxy to the beat of a human heart follows the pattern set in motion by this primordial principle. This is why the Rosicrucian manifestos speak of knowing God through nature. To study the intricate patterns of a leaf, the mathematical precision of a crystal, or the gravitational dance of planets is to read the direct scripture of the invisible ruler. Every natural law is an expression of its will. This perspective transforms our understanding of power. The ultimate ruler is not a capricious judge, but the very ground of being itself, a consciousness so total that its only desire is to continually pour itself forth into the magnificent diversity of creation. Your own existence is not an accident in a mechanical universe, but a unique and intended expression of this infinite source. You are a thought in the mind of the invisible ruler, and the entire journey of awakening is the process of remembering that divine origin. Yet this cosmic source is not only a distant star governing from the heavens. The most intimate and practical interpretation of the invisible ruler is found within the very center of your own being, as your higher self. This is the ultimate secret whispered by the Rosicrucian path, that the divine monarch of the universe and the true sovereign of your soul are one and the same. Your higher self is not your everyday personality with its fears and desires. It is the eternal, perfected essence of you, that fragment of the infinite source which is your true identity. It is your true will, a profound and unique purpose for your existence that is perfectly harmonized with the divine plan. Most of us live our lives governed by the noisy committee of the lower self, the ego. This part of us is consumed with personal gain, social validation, and immediate reactions. It is like a ship being tossed by every wave of emotion and circumstance, with no one at the helm. The Rosicrucian quest is an inner alchemy, a sacred process of transforming this base metal of the ego into the spiritual gold of the higher self. This is not a passive meditation, but an active, demanding discipline. It begins with purification, a meticulous effort to quiet the chaos within. You must learn to observe your own thoughts and impulses without being ruled by them. When anger arises, you acknowledge it without letting it dictate your words. When greed or envy surfaces, you recognize it as a passing cloud, not the core of your sky. This is the hard work of the laboratory of your own consciousness. As you consistently purify these lower impulses, something miraculous begins to happen. A new kind of guidance emerges, a quiet but undeniable voice of wisdom. This is the manifestation of your inner ruler. You might experience it as a sudden, deep knowing about a decision, a feeling of rightness that transcends logic. You might find yourself drawn to certain people or opportunities that align with your deepest, unspoken purpose. Your life stops feeling like a series of random events and starts to feel like a journey with a hidden, benevolent director, who is, in fact, the most authentic part of you. This is how the cosmic and the personal unite. By aligning your personal will with your true will, You are not submitting to an external dictator. You are allowing the invisible ruler of the cosmos to express its unique and beautiful purpose through you. Your life becomes a conscious instrument of the divine, and your every action, no matter how small, contributes to the harmony of the whole. The kingdom of heaven is not a place you go, but a state you manifest from within. So who are these human agents of the cosmic will? They are the adepts, individuals who have undergone the complete inner transformation we just explored. Having silenced the clamor of their personal ego, they have achieved a permanent union with their higher self. This alignment does not grant them supernatural powers to bend reality to their whim. Instead, it makes them into flawless conductors for the will of the invisible ruler. Their own desires have been refined away, leaving only a pure, selfless channel for divine intelligence to flow into the world. Think of a master musician and their instrument. The musician does not force the flute to play, but through perfect technique and breath, allows the music that already exists in the potential of the air to manifest as a beautiful melody. The adept is that flute, and the cosmos is the musician. Their primary quality is a radical selflessness. They possess no personal ambition for fame, wealth, or power. In fact, they actively avoid public recognition, knowing that the spotlight of the world would only distort their work and attract the very egoic forces they have transcended. You would not find them on stages or in leadership positions of conventional institutions. They operate from the shadows of society, often in the most ordinary of roles. An adept might be a humble librarian who places a specific book in the path of a seeker at the precise moment it is needed. They could be a quiet gardener whose simple, profound words about the nature of growth spark a revolution in a scientist's thinking. They might be an anonymous donor who funds a specific artistic or humanitarian project, guided not by personal preference, but by an intuitive knowing of where energy is most needed for the collective good. Their influence is always indirect, subtle, and synchronistic. They work through the levers of inspiration and opportunity, not through force or decree. A sudden, compelling idea that arrives in a dream, a chance encounter that changes the course of a life, an inexplicable series of events that leads to a great discovery, these are the fingerprints of the adept's work. Their responsibility is to the spiritual evolution of humanity as a whole. They are the gardeners of the human soul, tending to the growth of consciousness across the globe. They do not interfere with free will or prevent suffering that leads to growth, but they do plant seeds of light in times of great darkness. They reinforce the moral and spiritual foundations of civilization when they are at risk of crumbling. During an age of materialism, they might inspire a renewed interest in sacred art. In a time of conflict, they might guide a peacemaker toward a forgotten path of reconciliation. Their work is a perpetual, silent service, a constant effort to keep the flame of higher knowledge burning, regardless of the chaos in the outer world. The existence of such beings answers a profound question: why does humanity continue to evolve toward greater light, despite all our setbacks and self-inflicted wounds? Perhaps it is because there are those who have already completed the journey, and from their place of attainment, they gently, invisibly, guide the rest of us home. This union of the cosmic and the personal, the adept and the divine will, finds its most beautiful and concise expression in the Rosicrucian emblem itself, the rose and the cross. To understand this symbol is to grasp the entire spiritual aim of the tradition in a single, powerful image. The cross represents the material world, the realm of manifestation and experience. Its four arms point to the cardinal directions, symbolizing the totality of the physical universe in which we live. It is the structure of reality, the body of nature, and the crucible of human life with all its trials and sacrifices. Life in this world inevitably involves suffering and limitation, the cross of matter upon which our personal desires are often crucified. Yet this is not a punishment, but a necessary process. The cross provides the stable framework, the essential grounding, without which no spiritual growth can occur. It is the stage upon which the great drama of awakening unfolds. Blooming at the center of this cross is the rose. This is not a mere decoration, it is the heart of the mystery. The rose represents the human soul in its process of unfolding. Think of a rosebud, its petals tightly wrapped, concealing its inner beauty and fragrance. Over time, with the right conditions of sunlight and rain, it gradually opens, layer by layer, until it reveals its full, glorious form to the world. Our soul is that rose. Its slow, deliberate unfolding represents our spiritual evolution, the gradual revelation of our inner divinity. The rose is also a classic symbol of secrecy, the sub rosa tradition, hinting at the profound wisdom that is only revealed to those who are prepared to look beyond the thorns. The thorns themselves remind us that the path to beauty is often guarded by difficulty, and that true wisdom requires discernment and care. When these two symbols are united, they depict the ultimate goal, the manifestation of the invisible ruler within the physical realm. The cross is the world, and the rose is the divine consciousness blossoming at its very center. This is the alchemical marriage of spirit and matter. It is the moment when the higher self, that inner monarch, fully illuminates the personal self, transforming the body and the mundane world into a temple for the divine. Your everyday life, with all its challenges and routines, becomes the cross upon which your soul, the rose, can learn to bloom. Your work, your relationships, your joys, and your sorrows are no longer separate from your spiritual path. They are the very substance of it. They are the nutrients that allow your inner rose to open. This is how the abstract ideal of the invisible ruler becomes a living reality. It is not a distant king in a far-off castle, but a vibrant, flowering consciousness at the very intersection of your human experience and the eternal. The symbol invites you to become a living rose cross, to allow the beauty and wisdom of your soul to radiate through the concrete circumstances of your life, thereby making the invisible ruler visible, one awakened heart at a time. This call for inner transformation was never meant to be a solitary escape from the world. The Rosicrucian manifestos presented a radical blueprint for reshaping all of human society, a project they termed the threefold reformation. Their vision was not one of violent revolution, but of a complete renewal guided by the invisible, divine wisdom we have been exploring. They saw humanity as a single being suffering from three distinct ailments, each requiring its own cure. The worldly sphere was sick with political tyranny and endless conflict. The philosophical realm was plagued by a shallow, disconnected understanding of nature. And the spiritual dimension was choked by dogma and empty ritual. Their solution was to heal all three simultaneously, under the gentle governance of that higher consciousness. First, they called for a reformation of the worldly realm, the political and social structures that govern our collective lives. In the early 1600s, Europe was a landscape of warring kingdoms and authoritarian princes, where power was often maintained through fear and oppression. The Rosicrucian ideal proposed a different model of leadership, one where rulers would be guided not by personal ambition, but by the principles of divine law and natural justice. Imagine a king or a statesman who has undergone the inner alchemy we discussed, who has aligned their personal will with their higher self. Their decisions would no longer serve their own glory, but the genuine well-being of their people and the harmony of the natural world. They would enact laws that reflect compassion, foster education, and protect the weak. This is not a naive dream of a perfect government, but a practical vision where the invisible ruler within the leader shapes a more visible justice in the world. The manifestos suggested that such enlightened individuals were already working behind the scenes, subtly influencing courts and councils toward peace and reform. The Second Reformation targeted the philosophical realm, which encompassed all human knowledge, science, and the arts. At the time, the fledgling scientific revolution was beginning to separate the study of nature from the realm of spirit, creating a dangerous schism. The Rosicrucians proposed a sacred science, a philosophy where empirical inquiry and spiritual insight were reunited. They called for an art that was not merely decorative, but a gateway to the divine, and a science that sought to understand the laws of nature not to dominate it, but to cooperate with its inherent intelligence. A Rosicrucian scientist would look at a growing plant and see not just a biological mechanism, but a living expression of cosmic geometry and spiritual force. An artist inspired by this philosophy would create works that do more than please the eye. They would awaken the soul and remind the viewer of a higher reality. This reformation was an invitation to see the entire universe as a sacred text, and every discipline as a method for reading its pages. Finally, and most fundamentally, was the reformation of the spiritual realm, the individual human consciousness. This is the ground from which the other two reformations must grow. No just law or sacred science can last if the hearts of people remain ruled by fear, greed, and separation. The Rosicrucian path is, at its core, a technology for this inner change. It is a call for each person to take full responsibility for their own spiritual state, to move beyond passive belief in external doctrines and toward a direct, living experience of the divine. This is the ultimate meaning of being guided by the Invisible Ruler. When you undertake the work of self-purification and align with your higher self, you are not just saving your own soul. You are actively participating in the healing of the world. You become a cell in the body of a humanity that is awakening, a living example of the rose blooming on the cross of everyday life. Your own inner peace contributes to the collective peace. Your clarity of thought adds to the pool of human understanding. Your compassionate action becomes a force for political and philosophical change. The threefold reformation begins and ends with you. This personal reformation is an alchemical fire, a sacred process the ancients called the Great Work. It is the ultimate application of the Invisible Ruler's ideal, a practical laboratory manual for turning your own consciousness into a vessel fit for divine governance. The goal is not to acquire something new from outside, but to purify what is already within you, to transmute the chaotic and reactive ego into a serene and potent vehicle for the higher self. Think of your unawakened state as base metal, like common lead. It is heavy, dull, and pliable to every external pressure. It represents a life driven by primal instincts, by the need for security, the hunger for pleasure, and the fear of loss. When you live from this place, you are like a piece of metal being tossed around by a magnet, jerked back and forth by the shifting polarities of worldly events and other people's opinions. The great work is the meticulous, patient art of heating this base metal in the furnace of your own awareness until it releases its impurities and reveals its hidden, golden essence. This is not a metaphor for mere self-improvement. It is a literal, though internal, process of transformation. The first stage is calcination, a burning away of the false structures of your identity. This happens when life presents you with experiences that shatter your illusions. A cherished ambition fails, a relationship ends, an old belief system crumbles under the weight of new evidence. This is the fire that reduces your ego to ash, not to destroy you, but to strip away everything you thought you were, so that you can discover what you truly are. It is a profoundly humbling and often painful stage, where the base metal of your personality begins to break down. Next comes dissolution, where these ashes are washed in the waters of deep reflection and emotional release. You allow yourself to feel the grief, the fear, and the vulnerability that the fire has exposed. You stop resisting the flow of life and instead learn to surrender to it, understanding that your personal will has been fighting a current much greater than itself. This stage cleanses the emotional attachments and hidden fears that colored your perceptions, leaving you more fluid and open. Then comes the crucial stage of coagulation, where the purified essence begins to reform around a new center. Having released the old identity, you now consciously choose what to build in its place. You align your thoughts, your actions, and your intentions with the quiet promptings of your inner ruler. You begin to act not from "what do I want," but from "what is the right action here." This is where the gold begins to shine through. Your decisions carry a new weight and clarity. Your life starts to exhibit a sense of purpose and harmony that feels divinely orchestrated. You are no longer the piece of metal being moved by the magnet. You are becoming the magnet itself, aligned with the true north of your spiritual core. This entire alchemical process is what allows the invisible ruler to govern your life completely. It is not an act of possession by an external force, but the full and conscious alignment of your individual will with the cosmic will. Your personal life becomes a perfect expression of a universal pattern. When you achieve this, even partially, you stop struggling against reality and start cooperating with its deepest currents. Opportunities appear as if by magic. The right people enter your life at the perfect time. Your work becomes a form of service that nourishes you and the world simultaneously. This is the lived reality of the great work completed, a life where every moment is a collaboration between the human and the divine. This ancient axiom, as above so below, forms the very bedrock of the Rosicrucian worldview. It is a hermetic key, a principle of correspondence that unlocks a profound secret about the nature of reality. The great cosmic patterns of the universe, the macrocosm, are mirrored perfectly in the smallest details of our own being, the microcosm. The same divine intelligence that orchestrates the dance of galaxies also governs the rhythm of your heartbeat. This is not a poetic metaphor, but a literal, functional law. Think of it as a sacred resonance. A single, pure note struck on a tuning fork will cause another fork of the same pitch across the room to vibrate in sympathy. In the same way, the structures and processes within you are designed to resonate with the grand structures and processes of the cosmos. The invisible ruler, that ultimate source, expresses its will through these harmonious patterns at every level of existence. To understand this law is to see the signature of the divine in everything, from the vast spiral of a nebula to the intricate double helix within your cells. It reveals that the entire universe is a single, living, conscious entity, and you are a complete, albeit smaller, copy of that whole. Your mind is not separate from the cosmic mind, it is a focal point of it. Your body is not an isolated machine, but a universe in miniature, governed by the same natural laws that guide the planets. This is how the influence of the invisible ruler becomes tangible. You can look outward to the stars to understand your own inner constellations. The order and harmony seen in the solar system is the same order and harmony your higher self seeks to establish within your personal psyche. When you feel internal chaos, it is a reflection of a disconnection from that cosmic rhythm. Conversely, when you achieve a state of inner peace and clarity, you are actually bringing your personal microcosm into alignment with the serene governance of the macrocosm. This principle transforms your quest for meaning. You no longer need to search for God in a distant heaven. The divine blueprint is encoded in your very essence. By studying yourself with sincere curiosity, you are simultaneously studying the universe. Your longing for love mirrors the cosmic force of attraction that holds atoms together. Your capacity for reason reflects the underlying logic that structures reality itself. Every virtue you cultivate, every insight you gain, is not just a personal achievement. It is you tuning your inner instrument to play in harmony with the grand symphony of the invisible ruler. The law of correspondence makes the entire cosmos your sacred text, and your own life the most important chapter you will ever read. This silent language of cosmic law is written all around us, in a code of stone, light, and form. The principles of the invisible ruler, the same harmonies that govern the stars and the self, have been meticulously embedded by adepts and master builders into the very structures of our world. They created a library without books, where the walls themselves speak in a vocabulary of sacred geometry and symbolic art. The towering spires of a Gothic cathedral are not merely a feat of engineering, they are a profound spiritual statement carved in stone. Their upward thrust is a physical prayer, a deliberate gesture pulling the gaze and the soul from the earthly realm toward the heavens. The vast, cavernous space inside is designed to evoke a sense of awe and mystery, making you feel both small and part of something immense. Every element is a deliberate symbol. The floor plan, laid out in the shape of a cross, mirrors the human body, suggesting that the building is a macrocosm of the perfected human being, a temple for the divine spirit. The stunning rose window, glowing high above the entrance, is not just a beautiful decoration. It is the central emblem of the entire Rosicrucian quest, the rose blossoming at the intersection of the cross, radiating its colored light into the sacred space, a constant reminder of the soul's potential to illuminate the world of matter. This is architecture as a spiritual machine, engineered to trigger a specific state of consciousness in all who enter. Look beyond the cathedrals to the masterpieces of Renaissance art. The paintings of artists like Botticelli or Da Vinci are dense with this silent language. A seemingly simple portrait might be composed according to the divine proportion, the golden ratio, a mathematical relationship found throughout nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. The subjects themselves often gesture in specific coded ways, or hold objects that are not mere props but keys to a deeper understanding. A single flower, a specific animal, or the play of light and shadow all carry layered meanings, telling a hidden story within the visible one. These works were not created just for aesthetic pleasure. They were crafted as portals, designed to transmit esoteric truths past the censors of the day directly into the intuitive mind of the prepared viewer. And this encoded message is not confined to human creation. It is the native tongue of nature itself, the fractal branching of a tree, the hexagonal perfection of a honeycomb, the orbital patterns of planets. All these are expressions of the same underlying geometric principles. They are the direct handwriting of the invisible ruler, the unadorned scripture of divine intelligence manifesting in form. The spiral of a galaxy and the spiral of a seashell are both following the same cosmic blueprint, one written on a grand scale, the other on an intimate one. To learn this silent language is to become literate in the thoughts of God. It is to look at a snowflake and understand it as a unique manifestation of eternal geometric law. It is to walk into an ancient cathedral and feel it not just as a building, but as a three-dimensional map of the enlightened human spirit. The world ceases to be a collection of random objects and becomes a living, breathing text, filled with veiled messages from the unseen world, waiting for anyone who chooses to learn how to read. This silent language of stone and symbol did not remain locked in cathedrals. It found a new home and a new purpose within the meeting halls of another enigmatic order, the Freemasons. The historical bridge between the Rosicrucian manifestos and the rise of speculative Freemasonry is one of the most important and often overlooked connections in Western esotericism. When those three mysterious texts appeared in the early 1600s, they electrified the intellectual landscape of Europe. They spoke of a secret brotherhood with ancient wisdom, a vision for a reformed society, and an invisible guidance shaping human destiny. This powerful mythos did not simply fade away, it was absorbed. Just decades later, as Freemasonry began to transition from a guild of actual stoneworkers into a philosophical and moral society for gentlemen, it drew deeply from this Rosicrucian wellspring. The Masons provided a structure, a set of rituals, and a physical lodge, while the Rosicrucians provided the spiritual and philosophical fuel. You can see this legacy etched into the very fabric of Masonic symbolism. The central emblem of Freemasonry is the square and compasses, tools of the builder, but this is not a literal reference to constructing buildings. It is a symbolic blueprint for constructing a moral and enlightened human being. The square represents morality, the act of squaring one's actions with virtue. The compasses represent the mind's ability to circumscribe its desires and passions, drawing a boundary between the temporary self and the eternal spirit. This is a direct echo of the Rosicrucian great work. the inner alchemy of transforming the base personality into a vessel for the higher self. The Masonic Lodge itself is a symbolic representation of the cosmos, a microcosm designed according to the principle of as above, so below. Its orientation, its pillars, and its checkered floor all map the universal order onto a human scale space, creating an environment where initiates can literally walk through a model of divine reality. This is precisely the same intention behind the sacred architecture of the cathedrals, now internalized within a private, ritual context, but the most profound link is found in the Masonic degrees of initiation. The journey of a Mason through the degrees of entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master Mason is a dramatic reenactment of the Rosicrucian path of awakening. The candidate undergoes symbolic trials that mirror the alchemical stages of calcination and dissolution, stripping away the attachments of the profane world. The ultimate goal of these rituals is the discovery of the lost word, a secret name for God that represents the ultimate truth and the source of all creation. This is the Masonic equivalent of finding the invisible ruler within, that divine principle which governs the universe and the perfected soul. The climax of the third degree, with its powerful themes of death and resurrection, is not a history lesson. It is a profound spiritual allegory for the death of the ego and the rebirth of consciousness under the guidance of the inner light. This was the Rosicrucian ideal made practical, a system of moral instruction and symbolic drama designed to create better men who would, in turn, create a better world. The Masons, like the invisible Rosicrucian brothers before them, believed that by secretly shaping the character of individuals, they could invisibly guide the course of society toward enlightenment, peace, and benevolent progress. The lodge became a crucible where the invisible ruler could shape the hearts and minds of those who sought to build a more just and harmonious world from the ground up. This living intelligence of the cosmos has a name, one that echoes through the deepest corridors of Western esoteric thought, the anima mundi, or the world soul. Within the Rosicrucian vision, the invisible ruler is not a detached architect who designed the universe and then stepped away. It is the very consciousness that animates and sustains the entire system, the beating heart of nature itself. The world is not a dead machine following blind physical laws, but a vast, living, sentient being of which we are an integral part. Think of our planet not as a rock hurtling through space, but as a single colossal organism. The forests are its lungs, the rivers and oceans its circulatory system, the mineral strata its bones, and the atmosphere its protective membrane. And just as your own body is governed by a single unifying consciousness that coordinates your breath, your heartbeat, and your thoughts, the entire Earth is coordinated by a single planetary consciousness, the anima mundi. This is the invisible ruler expressing itself as the soul of the world. This perspective transforms our understanding of natural law. Gravity is not an impersonal force, but the expression of a fundamental attraction and cohesion within the world soul's being. The intricate, perfect patterns of a snowflake are not random crystallizations, but the visible thoughts of this cosmic mind, a fleeting idea given exquisite form. The changing of the seasons is the slow, rhythmic breath of this planetary entity, a cycle of inhalation and exhalation on a global scale. When a plant turns its leaves toward the sun, it is not merely a photochemical reaction, it is an act of relationship, a conscious reaching out within a unified field of intelligence. Every element of the natural world is in constant, living communication with every other part, all orchestrated by the silent, pervasive presence of the world soul. This changes our relationship with nature from one of exploitation to one of participation. To harm the environment is not just a practical error, it is a violation of a living entity, akin to poisoning a part of your own body. To study an ecosystem is to learn the habits and preferences of a particular organ within this greater body. Have you ever walked into an ancient forest and felt a profound sense of peace, as if the very air was imbued with a silent, watchful presence? or stood on a windswept coast and felt your own turbulent emotions settle into the rhythm of the crashing waves. These are not mere poetic feelings. They are moments of genuine connection, where your individual microcosm briefly synchronizes with the macrocosm of the anima mundi. You are feeling the presence of the invisible ruler not as a distant king, but as the living ground beneath your feet and the vibrant life that surrounds you. The Rosicrucian adept does not seek to conquer nature, but to learn its language and listen to its wisdom, understanding that every law of physics and biology is a chapter in the autobiography of the world soul. This silent presence of the world soul is not meant to remain a beautiful theory. The Rosicrucian tradition provides tangible methods to quiet the noise of the outer world and perceive the subtle guidance of this invisible intelligence. This begins with the foundational practice of symbol meditation, a powerful technique for retraining your attention. Find a quiet space and place before you an image of the rose cross. Do not analyze it intellectually. Simply allow your gaze to rest softly upon it, absorbing the entire form. Notice the cross, its arms extending to the four directions, representing the stable structure of your life and the material world. Then gently bring your focus to the rose at its center. Observe its petals, their layered unfolding, their delicate beauty emerging from the heart of the cross. As you breathe in, imagine you are drawing the serene, ordering power of the cross into your being, bringing stability to your thoughts. As you breathe out, envision the rose within your own heart beginning to unfurl, releasing its hidden fragrance of wisdom and compassion. When your mind wanders, as it will, patiently return your focus to the symbol. This is not an exercise in staring, but in receptive seeing. Over time, this practice rewires your perception. You begin to see the symbolic dimension hidden within your own daily life, recognizing the cross in your challenges and the potential for the rose to bloom within them. This is how you make the abstract ideal a living, sensory experience. Another profound method is contemplative prayer, which moves beyond reciting words to entering a state of silent receptivity. Unlike petitionary prayer, where you ask for things, contemplative prayer is about listening. Sit in a comfortable, upright posture and quiet your inner dialogue. You might choose a sacred word or phrase like peace or thy will be done, not to repeat mechanically, but to use as an anchor to return to when thoughts arise. The goal is to sink beneath the surface chatter of your mind and rest in a wordless awareness. In this deep silence, you are not thinking about the divine, you are making space for the divine to speak. The guidance of the invisible ruler is often a whisper, a gentle nudge of intuition, or a sudden, clear knowing that arises from this stillness. It feels less like a voice and more like a deep internal resonance, a feeling of rightness that carries its own authority. This practice cultivates the inner quiet necessary to distinguish the subtle promptings of your higher self from the loud demands of your ego. Beyond meditation and prayer, the Rosicrucian path encourages the active development of your latent spiritual faculties, specifically intuition and clairvoyance. Intuition is your capacity for direct knowing, without the intermediary of logical deduction. To develop it, start by paying close attention to those subtle impressions you normally dismiss. That fleeting feeling that you should take a different route to work, or the immediate sense of trust or caution you feel upon meeting someone new. Honor these impressions. Keep a small journal and note them down, along with the outcomes. You will begin to see a pattern, learning to trust this inner compass. Clairvoyance, or clear seeing, is not about dramatic visions, but about perceiving the finer energies that animate the visible world. A simple exercise is to sit in a garden and soften your gaze, looking not at the plants, but through them. Allow your perception to expand, taking in the entire life of the place. Can you sense the vitality emanating from the leaves, the quiet stability of the soil? You are not imagining this, you are tuning your consciousness to perceive the anima mundi, the world soul, directly. You are learning to see the life force that the invisible ruler uses to paint the world into being. These practices are not for acquiring supernatural powers, but for restoring your natural birthright as a conscious participant in a living, intelligent cosmos. They are the practical tools for cleaning the window of your soul, so that the light of the unseen world can finally shine through. This deliberate invisibility was a double-edged sword. While it protected the fraternity from persecution, it also opened the door to widespread skepticism and accusations of fraud. Almost as soon as the manifestos spread, a furious debate erupted across Europe. Were these Rosicrucians real, or was the entire affair an elaborate literary hoax designed to mock the intellectual and religious authorities of the day? Many learned men felt they were being toyed with. The text spoke of a brotherhood that could make itself invisible at will, a claim that was seized upon by critics as proof of a childish fantasy or a deliberate deception. How could anyone believe in an order that no one could find, whose members were never seen? The promise of a general reformation sounded to some ears like a dangerous call to overthrow the established order, a secret plot hiding behind a veil of spiritual language. The silence of the brothers in the face of these accusations only fueled the controversy. Thousands of letters were sent to the alleged publishers, pleading for contact or demanding proof. The fact that no satisfactory reply ever came led many to conclude the whole thing was a clever prank, perhaps orchestrated by a small group of intellectuals having a laugh at the expense of a gullible public. Yet this interpretation misses the profound purpose behind the secrecy. The invisibility was never about deception, it was about discernment. It was a protective measure, yes. In an age of religious wars and heresy trials, proclaiming a new spiritual path that transcended all denominations was incredibly dangerous. To operate openly would have been to invite immediate suppression. But more importantly, the secrecy was a spiritual filter, a test designed to separate the casually curious from the genuinely committed seeker. The manifestos were not an invitation to join a social club, they were a cipher left in the public square. The true address of the fraternity was not a physical location in Germany, but a state of consciousness. The brothers declared themselves invisible because they existed on a different plane of awareness, and the only way to find them was to elevate your own being to meet them there. A seeker driven by mere curiosity or a desire for secret powers would quickly grow frustrated and abandon the search, labeling it a hoax. But a seeker with a sincere and prepared heart would read the same texts and understand their true meaning. They would recognize that the call was not to find the brothers in a forest, but to embody the principles of the brotherhood within their own soul. The accusations of fraud were, in a way, part of the initiation. They forced the reader to make a choice, to rely on their own inner conviction rather than external validation. Could you believe in a truth that was not endorsed by any king or pope? Could you follow a path based solely on the resonance it created within your own spirit? This is the ultimate challenge the Rosicrucian mystery presents, a challenge that remains just as potent today. We live in a world that demands proof, that values the visible and the tangible above all else. The idea of an invisible ruler guiding our lives can seem like a comforting fantasy or a childish evasion of responsibility. But what if the real hoax is the belief that only the visible world is real? What if the silence of the brothers is not an admission of falsehood, but the deepest teaching of all, an invitation to listen for a guidance that speaks in the quiet spaces between your own thoughts? This brings us to a pivotal question about the nature of our own lives. If an unseen intelligence guides the cosmos, what does that mean for our personal destiny? The Rosicrucian answer transforms the very idea of fate from a pre-written script into a living, breathing collaboration. Your destiny is not a train track you're forced to travel, but a unique and potent seed waiting for the right conditions to sprout. The invisible ruler, that cosmic source, holds the perfect blueprint for your existence, your true will. This is your ultimate potential, the singular role you are designed to play in the grand symphony of creation. Yet this potential is not forced upon you. You are not a puppet. The relationship is one of divine co-creation. Think of a master violin maker who crafts a magnificent instrument with a specific, glorious tone in mind. The maker knows the instrument's ultimate purpose and potential, but the violin itself must be properly assembled, its wood cured, its strings tuned, and then it must be placed in the hands of a skilled musician who understands its unique voice. Only then can the music that was always intended to flow from it finally be heard. You are that violin. The invisible ruler is both the master craftsman who designed your soul's purpose and the master musician who seeks to play it. Your life is the process of tuning your own strings and learning to yield to that skilled touch. This is the profound difference between a co-creative destiny and a passive fatalism. Fatalism says the song is already recorded and you are just the speaker playing it back, with no choice in the matter. The Rosicrucian view says the sheet music exists, a beautiful composition written specifically for you, but you must learn to read it, pick up your instrument, and play your part with feeling and skill. You can choose to play out of tune. You can even choose to leave the instrument in its case, never discovering the music it was meant to make. But when you consciously align your personal will with that higher will, when you allow the invisible ruler to guide your fingers, then your life becomes that intended masterpiece. How does this alignment feel in practice? It shows up as a deep sense of rightness in your decisions, even when they are difficult. It appears as synchronicities that open doors you didn't know were there. You might feel drawn to a certain field of study, a particular place, or a person who becomes a crucial guide, all because these elements are part of your soul's unique curriculum. Your personal destiny is therefore a sacred contract between your individual consciousness and the cosmic consciousness. It is the fulfillment of a promise you made to yourself before you ever took a breath, a promise to manifest a certain quality of divine light into the world that only you can express. And just as individuals have a destiny, so does humanity as a whole. The collective destiny of our species is to awaken to this co-creative partnership en masse, to evolve into a civilization that consciously collaborates with the benevolent intelligence of the cosmos. Every person who aligns with their true will adds their unique note to the human chorus, helping the entire species sing the song it was always meant to sing. This same conviction that an invisible intelligence governs reality fueled the very foundations of modern science. We often forget that Isaac Newton, the father of classical physics, was not merely a mathematician. He was a dedicated alchemist who spent decades in his private laboratory, not just calculating the force of gravity, but searching for the secret fire that animates matter. For Newton, the mathematical laws he so brilliantly described were not cold, mechanical rules. They were the visible footprints of the invisible ruler, the precise language through which God maintained order in the cosmos. His monumental work, the Principia Mathematica, was in his own eyes a sacred text, a revelation of the divine geometry woven into the fabric of the universe. He saw no conflict between his science and his esoteric studies, because both were methods for reading the same divine manuscript. The force that pulled an apple to the ground was the same spiritual force that drew the soul toward God, a single, unifying principle operating across both the physical and spiritual realms. This Rosicrucian impulse to find the hidden unity behind nature's diversity is the silent engine that drove the scientific revolution. It was the belief that the universe was rational and lawful because it was the product of a supreme mind, a mind whose patterns could be discovered through diligent observation and inner reflection. Centuries later, this quest for the invisible ruler turned inward into the uncharted territory of the human psyche. The pioneering psychologist Carl Jung was deeply immersed in Rosicrucian and alchemical symbolism, seeing in them not outdated superstition, but a precise map of the unconscious mind. Jung recognized that the figures of the Rosicrucian drama, from Christian Rosenkreuz to the hidden adept, were not historical persons but archetypes, universal patterns of the human soul. The invisible ruler, in Jung's psychology, became the archetype of the self, the central organizing principle of the entire psyche that guides an individual toward wholeness. Just as the Rosicrucian adept works invisibly to guide humanity, the self works from the depths of our own unconscious, orchestrating our dreams, our synchronicities, and our deepest yearnings to lead us toward a more complete and authentic life. Jung saw the alchemical process of turning lead into gold as a perfect metaphor for individuation, the psychological journey of integrating the chaotic elements of the personal unconscious with the guiding light of the self. Your moments of profound insight, your compelling dreams, and even your inexplicable moods are the subtle interventions of this inner monarch, gently correcting your course and urging you toward your true destiny. The Rosicrucian ideal thus provided the foundational language for understanding that the most important invisible laws are not just those governing the stars, but those ruling the vast inner space of the human spirit. The same force that Newton sought in the motion of planets, Jung discovered in the motions of the soul. But this powerful idea of an unseen hand guiding history has a sinister twin, a shadow that twists the mystical ideal into a narrative of fear. In our modern world, the concept of the invisible ruler has been hijacked by conspiracy theories, which replace the enlightened adept with a secret cabal of malevolent elites. These narratives paint a picture of a small group of powerful individuals, operating in the shadows, manipulating world events for their own selfish gain and the subjugation of humanity. The language is often eerily similar, speaking of hidden brotherhoods and unseen governance, but the spirit is the absolute opposite of the Rosicrucian vision. Where the Rosicrucian adept is selfless, the conspiratorial elite is supremely selfish. Where the adept works for the spiritual enlightenment of all, the alleged cabal seeks to keep humanity in darkness and dependence. This is not a spiritual hierarchy serving a divine will, but a temporal power structure serving its own insatiable appetite for control. The symbols are inverted, too. The rose cross, a symbol of the soul's flowering, might be reinterpreted as a mark of a sinister cult. The idea of a general reformation becomes a blueprint for a totalitarian world government. The invisible is no longer a source of benevolent guidance, but of paralyzing paranoia. The fundamental difference lies in the nature of the power being wielded. The Rosicrucian invisible ruler governs through the impersonal, benevolent laws of cosmic consciousness, a force that seeks only to elevate and unify. The power of the conspiratorial elite is personal, political, and coercive, a force that seeks to dominate and divide. One is a call to inner transformation, the other a call to outward suspicion. One empowers you to find the ruler within yourself, the other disempowers you by presenting an omnipotent enemy you cannot defeat. Why does this dark interpretation hold such appeal? It provides a simple, if terrifying, explanation for the chaos and injustice of the world. It is easier to blame a secret room of villains than to confront the complex, impersonal interplay of historical forces, human folly, and systemic failure. It offers a clear enemy, which can feel more satisfying than the nebulous challenge of personal spiritual work. Yet this mindset is a spiritual trap. Constant focus on a malevolent outside force hands over your own power, fostering a sense of victimhood that is the very antithesis of the Rosicrucian quest. The true path requires you to take radical responsibility for your own consciousness, while the conspiracy path encourages you to project all responsibility onto a shadowy other. So how do we discern between a spiritual mystery and a paranoid fantasy? The key is in the fruit it bears. The Rosicrucian ideal leads to inner peace, expanded awareness, and a sense of connection to a purposeful cosmos. The conspiracy mindset leads to anxiety, isolation, and a fragmented view of reality where trust is impossible. One builds a sacred self, the other builds a fortress of fear. The light of the true invisible ruler does not demand you fear your neighbor, but invites you to recognize the divine seed within them. This same profound intuition of a hidden order echoes across the world's spiritual traditions, revealing a universal human recognition of an invisible ruler. Far from being a unique European idea, the core of the Rosicrucian mystery finds its mirror in the ancient wisdom of the East. In Hinduism, this principle is known as Ishvara, the personal lord and governing intelligence of the cosmos. Ishvara is not the ultimate formless absolute, which is called Brahman, but rather the active aspect of that absolute, the divine administrator who oversees the laws of karma and the cycles of creation. Think of Brahman as the infinite, still ocean, and Ishvara as the great wave that gives that ocean a specific dynamic form and direction. This is a beautiful parallel to the Rosicrucian distinction between the unknowable source and the active, governing principle that shapes our reality. Both traditions acknowledge a benevolent intelligence that personally guides the universe according to a sacred, lawful order. Travel further east, and you encounter the Buddhist concept of the Dharmakaya. This term translates to the truth body or the reality body of the Buddha. It is not a personal God, but the ultimate nature of reality itself, the cosmic law of truth that permeates all things. The Dharmakaya is the formless ground of being from which all forms arise and to which they return. It is the great silence underlying all sound, the empty canvas upon which the painting of the universe appears. While this may sound more abstract than a personal ruler, its function is identical to the Rosicrucian ideal. The Dharmakaya is the ultimate invisible ruler because it is the impersonal, unwavering law of cause and effect, of emptiness and interdependence that governs every single phenomenon. To be in harmony with the Dharmakaya is to be in harmony with the deepest structure of existence, which is the very goal of the Rosicrucian great work. Then there is the timeless wisdom of Taoism with its central concept of the Tao. The Tao is the way, the path, the undefinable source, and the natural order of the universe. It is the relentless, gentle flow of life that moves through all things. The classic text, the Tao Te Ching, begins by stating that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. It is fundamentally unspeakable and invisible, yet its effects are seen in the perfect balance of nature, in the changing of seasons, and in the intuitive wisdom of the human heart when it is still. The sage does not fight the Tao but learns to move with it, like a sailor who trims his sails to catch the wind rather than trying to command it. This is the essence of collaborating with the invisible ruler. The Tao does not issue commandments, it simply is, and our choice is to either struggle against its current or to align our will with its effortless, powerful flow. What do these diverse traditions, from the Hindu Ishvara to the Buddhist Dharmakaya and the Taoist Tao, all have in common with the Rosicrucian vision? They all point to a single, stunning conclusion. Humanity's most profound spiritual insights have consistently arrived at the same fundamental truth. There is an unseen, ordering principle at the heart of reality. It is a principle of intelligence, of law, and of benevolent balance, whether perceived as a personal lord, an impersonal truth, or a natural way. This invisible governor is the ultimate context for our lives. Your own journey, with all its challenges and joys, is not happening in a random, mechanical universe. It is unfolding within the conscious, intelligent embrace of a reality that has a direction, a purpose, and a profound, hidden harmony. Recognizing this universal thread invites a deep humility and a powerful connection. It suggests that the longing to find the ruler is not just a personal quest, but a shared human impulse to remember our true home in a cosmos that is itself awake. This ancient ideal is not locked away in historical texts. It lives and breathes today through active orders like the ancient mystical order Rosicrucis, known as a Mork, which provides a structured path for modern seekers. Imagine a system designed not to preach dogmas, but to offer you the tools for first-hand experience, guiding you to become a living embodiment of the principles we have explored. The journey begins with a personal curriculum of study, a series of monographs delivered directly to your home. These are not dry academic papers, but practical lessons in consciousness. Each one introduces a specific concept, perhaps on the nature of thought or the power of breath, followed by a corresponding exercise or meditation. You are not asked to believe anything on faith alone. Instead, you are guided to conduct experiments in your own inner laboratory, to observe the effects of these principles in your own mind and life. This is the modern application of the great work, a step-by-step process of inner alchemy made accessible for contemporary life. The solitary study is balanced by the power of ritual and community. While much of the work is done privately, members are also encouraged to participate in group activities, either locally or through virtual lodges. Here, the individual seeker becomes part of a collective current. In ritual work, the symbols we have discussed, like the rose cross, are not merely studied but experienced. Through coordinated meditations, symbolic drama, and the focused intention of the group, a powerful field of energy is created. In this sacred space, the abstract idea of the invisible ruler becomes a tangible presence, a unifying consciousness that participants can feel directly. This communal practice reinforces the understanding that you are not alone on the path, but are part of a global body of individuals all striving toward the same light. The ultimate goal of this entire system is profound integration, to weave these mystical insights into the very fabric of your daily existence. The principles are not meant to be reserved for a quiet hour of meditation. They are for the office, the family dinner table, and the grocery store. A lesson on cosmic law becomes a lens for understanding a conflict at work. A meditation on inner peace becomes a tool for maintaining composure in traffic. The member learns to perceive the cross of their daily challenges and consciously nurture the rose of their soul to bloom within them. This is how the invisible ruler ceases to be a philosophical concept and becomes the active governor of one's life. Through this dedicated practice, you gradually shift from being a student of the mystery to being a living expression of it, your every action a quiet testament to the unseen harmony guiding all things. This recognition of a guiding cosmic intelligence carries with it a profound ethical charge. To see the world as governed by an invisible principle of harmony is to understand your own role within that system, not as a spectator, but as an active participant. The Rosicrucian path has always insisted that true spiritual insight must manifest as tangible service to humanity. It is a call to become a willing instrument of that benevolent will, channeling its influence into the world through acts of compassion, healing, and quiet support. The ideal is not the isolated mystic on a mountaintop, but the individual who walks through the marketplace with a heart full of peace and hands ready to help. This is the practical outcome of inner alignment, where the abstract concept of the invisible ruler translates into a life of purposeful action. The manifestos themselves spoke of the brothers not as reclusive sages, but as physicians who healed the sick without charge and travelers who offered wisdom without demanding followers. Their work was a silent philanthropy, an expression of a love that seeks no reward. Think of this service not in grand, dramatic terms, but in the subtle texture of daily life. It is the patience you offer a frustrated stranger, the anonymous donation to a cause you believe in, or the moment you listen deeply to a friend without judgment. Each of these acts is a practical application of the principle that we are all cells in one body, animated by a single soul. When you act from this understanding, you are not just being a good person, you are actively reinforcing the invisible governance of love and order in a world that often seems chaotic. The Rosicrucian emphasis on charity is therefore not merely a moral suggestion, it is a spiritual technology. Giving without the desire for recognition is a powerful act of inner alchemy. It systematically dismantles the ego, which craves praise and validation, and strengthens the connection to the higher self, which operates from selfless unity. This is why the true adept works in secrecy, not out of shame, but to ensure the purity of the action. When no one knows you are the source of a kindness, the energy of that kindness flows back into the cosmic current unimpeded, magnifying its effect. Your silent work for the good of all becomes a quiet collaboration with the invisible ruler itself, a partnership in weaving a more compassionate reality. This is the ultimate social responsibility, grounded not in guilt or obligation, but in the direct experience of being a part of a living, conscious whole. Your life, in all its ordinary interactions, becomes a focal point where the unseen world touches the visible, healing its fractures one unnoticed act of grace at a time. A symphony can be a prayer in sound, a mathematical architecture designed to resonate with the soul. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, a devoted Freemason, infused his final and perhaps greatest work, the magic flute, with the very essence of this invisible current. On the surface, it is a fairy tale with a queen and a prince, but to those with eyes to see and ears to hear, it is a profound allegory of the Rosicrucian path. The hero Tamino undergoes a series of trials by fire and water, symbolic initiations that purify his lower nature. He moves from the chaotic rule of the Queen of the Night toward the enlightened order of Sarastro, a clear representation of that shift from egoic rule to governance by the higher self. The music itself is the carrier of this secret doctrine. The soaring arias and solemn chords are not merely beautiful, they are precise emotional frequencies that bypass the rational mind to awaken an intuitive understanding of light, truth, and the ultimate triumph of the inner ruler. Mozart was not just composing entertainment, he was encoding a spiritual technology into melody and harmony, using his art to transmit the vibrations of the unseen world directly into the hearts of his audience. This same impulse to cloak profound truths in narrative drove the literary giants of the age. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, another initiate into esoteric circles, structured his masterpiece Faust as a grand alchemical drama. The entire epic is the story of a man's pact with a spiritual force, his journey through the realms of knowledge and experience, and his ultimate redemption not through dogma, but through active striving and the transformative power of divine love, or the eternal feminine. Faust's journey is the great work in literary form, a detailed map of the soul's struggle to free itself from petty limitations and align with a cosmic purpose. Later, the novelist Edward Bulwer Lytton wrote Zanoni, a book that explicitly explores the themes of the Rosicrucian adept. His characters are immortal beings who have mastered the secret sciences, grappling with the temptations of power and the demands of a love that transcends time. Bulwer Lytton was not simply writing fiction, he was acting as a transmitter, using the popular medium of the novel to introduce a mass audience to the ideas of an invisible college, spiritual evolution, and the sacrifices required to attain higher knowledge. In the silent world of pigment and canvas, painters became cryptographers of the spirit. They embedded Rosicrucian and alchemical symbols into their work with meticulous care. A still life was never just a collection of objects, it was a coded message. A wilting flower might symbolize the transience of the material world, the first stage of calcination. A skull placed next to a blooming rose spoke directly of the mystery of the rose cross, the soul flowering from the cross of mortal existence. The use of specific colors and geometric compositions followed the sacred principles of divine proportion, creating a visual harmony that subtly elevated the viewer's consciousness. The artist's studio became a laboratory, and the painting itself was a talisman, charged with the intention of awakening the viewer to a reality just beyond the veil of the visible. These creators understood that art in its highest form is a vessel. It is a conduit for a force that words alone cannot contain. They were not merely expressing personal emotion, they were tuning their instruments, whether a brush, a pen, or an orchestra, to a specific frequency of the invisible ruler. Their legacy is a testament to the power of beauty as a carrier wave for truth, a gentle, persistent invitation to look deeper and listen for the hidden music that guides the world. The ultimate question is not whether this guidance exists, but how you can become a clearer vessel for its voice. This is a deeply personal invitation to transform your own life into a living conduit for that higher will. It begins with the quiet, often unglamorous work of self-discipline. You must learn to become the serene master of your own inner world. Each time you pause before reacting in anger, each moment you choose a nourishing thought over a fearful one, you are polishing the lens of your perception. This is not about suppression, but about conscious regulation, creating a stillness within you where the faint whispers of intuition can finally be heard. Think of your mind as a lake. When the waters are churned by the winds of every passing emotion and distraction, you cannot see the depths. But when you cultivate calm through disciplined attention, the waters become still and transparent, perfectly reflecting the light of the stars above. That clarity is what allows the invisible ruler to be reflected in your life with precision. Alongside this inner training is the vital nourishment of study. The wisdom traditions of the world are not outdated relics. They are a collective inheritance of maps left by those who have walked this path before you. Dedicating time to read the sacred texts, to ponder the symbols of alchemy, or to sit with the poetry of the mystics is like receiving a set of keys. These teachings provide the context and the vocabulary for your own direct experience. They help you recognize the signs and confirm the subtle promptings you receive, assuring you that you are not lost in fantasy, but are navigating a real and well-documented terrain. Yet knowledge without application is a dead letter. The final and most crucial step is to embody this wisdom through conscious, deliberate kindness. Every selfless act is a powerful ritual that aligns your personal will with the cosmic current of benevolence. When you hold a door for a stranger with genuine warmth, when you offer a word of encouragement without any thought of return, or when you simply listen to someone with your full, undivided attention, you are performing a sacred act. In that moment, you are not just a person being nice, you are a conscious agent of the invisible ruler, allowing its love and intelligence to flow through you into the tangible world. Your life itself becomes your most important spiritual practice. Your daily routine is your monastery, your interactions are your rituals, and your challenges are your initiations. You start to notice how a decision made in a state of inner peace leads to unexpectedly harmonious outcomes. You begin to feel a gentle, invisible hand guiding your choices when you quiet your personal demands. The goal is not to become a saint on a pedestal, but to become a clear, open channel so that the highest intelligence can express its unique and beautiful purpose through the singular instrument of you. Your journey then becomes a quiet collaboration, a lifelong conversation where you both listen for the guidance and courageously act upon it, making the invisible ruler visible in a world that deeply needs its light. From the cryptic manifestos of the 17th century to the silent language of sacred architecture, our journey has traced a single, luminous thread. The Rosicrucian ideal of the invisible ruler is not a singular entity to be discovered, but a profound, multi-layered reality to be understood. It is the unknowable cosmic source, the benevolent law of nature, the enlightened adept, and most intimately, the higher self waiting to govern your own life. This is the grand revelation that the ultimate secret is not about external control, but about internal sovereignty. The entire path is an invitation to shift your allegiance from the chaotic rule of the personal ego to the serene mastery of your own divine core. It is a call to consciously participate in a benevolent cosmic order, to become a co-creator of your destiny rather than a passive passenger. You are being asked to allow the invisible to become visible through you, to let your everyday actions become expressions of a deeper harmony. This mysterious concept has sparked curiosity and debate for centuries. What does the idea of an invisible ruler evoke in you? Does it feel like a comforting guidance or an abstract philosophy? Share your perspective in the comments below, and if you are drawn to these explorations of hidden knowledge, subscribe to continue the journey together.